This One's Wife. Omitting Doria. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As more supposed revelations come from Bell Endgame, the excusable piece of shite that has been written by the improbably named plastic-face Weasley lickspittle lieutenant that is Omid Scobie, who maintains that he isn't this one's wife's friend, and the fact that, of course, this one's wife and Harry come out of it smelling of roses, whilst everybody else in the royal family gets a panelling, tends to suggest a huge dollop of bias. But there's also somebody else who hasn't really been mentioned. And The Mirror by Lauren Gordon tells us, this one's wife's mum, Doria, omitted from Bell Endgame book for calculated reason, says expert. This one's wife's mother, Doria, has been conveniently omitted from Omid Scobie's scathing Royal Tell-All, and experts believe it's part of the royal author's plan to keep close to the Sussexes. This one's wife's mother, Doria, is only mentioned once in Omid Scobie's scathing new book, Bell Endgame. The explosive book is described on Amazon as a penetrating investigation into the current state of the British monarchy. Really? Amazon might state that, but other publications view her as follows. The Telegraph: ludicrous propaganda for Team Sussex. Laughably partial, devoid of insight, and bizarrely misogynistic. The Standard: for a royal correspondent, he's weirdly uninformed about the basics. Evening Standard: a turkey of a book, and Scobie can't write for nuts. The New York Times: whether or not Scobie actively collaborated with this one's wife and Harry for this book, he does them no favours. Their chapter reads like a press release cooked up by ChatGPT and does little to shed light on them as humans. The BBC: it can feel like that grimmest of media moments being cornered by a reporter wanting to talk about their old stories. Herald Sun: nonsense. Those are just some of the reviews that have come forward, so to suggest that it is a penetrating investigation into the current state of the British monarchy doesn't really sit with what everybody else is saying. The book's description goes on to say, an unpopular king, bullshit. A power-hungry heir to the throne, horseshit. A queen willing to go to dangerous lengths to preserve her image, camel shit. And a prince forced to start a new life after being betrayed by his own family, rhinoceros turds. With the release of Bell Endgame, Omid has tried to distance himself from Harry and this one's wife. Posting on X, formerly known as Twitter, he said, "And let's get this nonsense out of the way. Hashtag Bell Endgame is about the current state of the British royal family. Sure it is. It's not Harry and this one's wife's book. I'm not this one's wife's pal. The Sussexes have nothing to do with it. Their story is a small part of a much bigger one you can read in 12 days, which was he pumped out in the past. Omid, nobody believes you. Why? Because it's a smearing of the royal family and all of the various faults, of which there are a huge number in relation to the Sussexes, don't even get mentioned. So nobody's buying the suggestion that it's not a publication in effect sponsored by the Sussexes. The Mirror continues by explaining, omitting Doria from the book helps Scobie, keep any distaste from this one's wife at arm's length. Well, of course that's going to be the case. As Doria has avoided being called out by the royal author, PR strategist and founder of PR with Perks, Laura Perks believes this was a tactical move to ensure Omid keeps a close relationship with the Duchess. Well, he has to, because he doesn't have a relationship with anybody else. She continued by explaining that it has been documented in other biographies that Doria was absent for much of this one's wife's childhood, yet played a huge part in the couple's life in the run-up to their nuptials in 2018. I've explained in parts passim the role of Doria as a lieutenant of that of this one's wife. We rarely see or hear about Doria, which makes me question how close the royal couple really are to this one's wife's mother. Perhaps Scobie has kept her out of the bug to keep her out of the firing line and the prying eyes of the press. We all know that once you start digging in the past, skeletons are released from the closet, many of which people don't want shared publicly. It may be that Scobie doesn't want to break ties with this one's wife completely, choosing to focus solely on one side of the family, the side that is constantly talked about in the media, rather than bringing Doria into the picture, Laura added. She concluded, Doria has always been perceived as an ally and a champion of the Sussexes. Well, as I've explained, she's a lieutenant of this one's wife. So to say anything different will completely ruin the narrative that has been played out in recent years. Omid also hinted at a close bond with this one's wife, despite claiming they aren't friends. As he revealed, she reached out to him after he was harassed online. The journalist is said to have received threats on social media, with the Duchess of Sussex personally reaching out to him on his mobile phone to check in on his welfare. Yes, because after all, they don't really have any connection or friendship, do they? The call came about after a member of this one's wife's team told her Omid had been dealing with threats and harassment. Details of the phone call were featured in Bell End Game. Thus, Doria escapes the treatment in the same way that Harry and this one's wife had. It again stretches credibility on the part of Scobie to suggest that this isn't a hatchet job against the royal family. He really does think that readers are dumb fucks if he maintains that stance. All you have to do is look at the evidence. Various members of the royal family are smeared, castigated, and lambasted. Is Harry's wife? No. Is Harry? No. Is this one's wife's mother? No. On the Sussex side, it's a clean bill of health, even though all three have shadiness surrounding them. It's evident that Scobie wants to keep in with this one's wife, for whom he carries a torch, but also because she's his financial lifeline. Given the fact that the improbably named plastic-faced Weasley Lickspittle lieutenant has very few options left to him, he has to make his connection count as being the mouthpiece. In order to try and gain some credibility, which he never will, he has to maintain that he's not connected to this one's wife, and that there is no friendship. But it is glaringly obvious that he is there as that spokesperson. He is there to hoover people by proxy on her behalf and to smear by proxy, as her narcissism once again causes the pursuit of the prime aims, and he is the doting lapdog that executes what she requires. It is transparent and obvious, and once again demonstrates how he is a proponent of her narcissism. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.